Hi, my name is Joe Lanyado, and this is the first of four videos about the origin of language and life. And this will start with the origin of life, obviously. And to start with, I know that every website and every book will tell you that no one knows the origin of life or of language. On the other hand, as strange as it sounds, both theologists and scientists agree that life was created with language, that language created life. This is then, if it's true, the crossroads where science and theology finally meet. Now, our best scientists tell us that if God, evolution, alien, created life, regardless who created it, someone had to first invent a 4-letter chemical language with which to program a replicating and a duplicating system we call DNA. The religious writings suggest that God created language and the world. The Kabbalah says God created the letters with which to create the universe. And the New Testament says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. It's probably the most eloquent way of saying that the Word, the programming, existed before creation was possible, prior to creation. Now, a theory is defined as a well-substantiated explanation of some aspect of natural world. Okay? 10 years after mapping the human genome, evolutionists have not yet been able to imagine, to guess, to theorize, to think how those 4 DNA letters were created by accident. Meaning what? That they don't have a theory of creation. They have a theory of evolution with the potential of becoming a theory of creation, but nothing so far. Now, scientists have discovered a lot of things, and I'm not here to negate any of them. I accept them. They've shown that life began about 1 billion years after Earth was created. That's approximately 3.5 billion years ago. It started with a simple single-cell organisms and developed slowly into us human. It started with less than 5 million bytes of information in the first DNA, and it ended up with 6 billion bytes of information in human DNA. They have shown that all of this happened when the same DNA language, the same DNA programming and replicating system is used for the last 3.5 billion years without any change. They're also showing that life programming has a lot of intelligence in it. And they've also shown that whoever programmed DNA, be it evolution, alien, or God, had the forethought to put all this information on a tiny little spot, a pin of a needle or less, and to be able to leave a lot of room for more additional information, accident or forethought. Now, evolution, using the aforementioned information, concluded that life was created by accident, evolved by accident, and therefore likely was naturally created by accident. And that's what we teach in school. Likely. No theory. No. The information doesn't mean that. It doesn't indicate natural evolution. I don't know how they got that conclusion. It suggests the opposite, actually, that a God or intelligent entity wrote all of life's diversities using the same DNA computer, the same DNA program, the same DNA language. Now, the exception makes a rule. If evolutionists could come up with one exception, one instant, one time they can show that nature tried to create life and failed, then this would indicate chemicals have developed somehow unexplainable the ability to accidentally combine. But evidence of one successful first-time try in 4.5 billion years without other subsequent attempts to create life doesn't suggest evolution. I'm sorry. It suggests that a scientific, well-informed God, creator, who wrote a DNA program, including evolution, in the same way we write computer programs today, a little more sophisticated. My son says they already have computer games that simulate creation. What we're saying here is, what I'm saying here is, based on the evidence that's gathered to date, intelligent design is a theory of creation that makes sense, that can explain that a DNA computer was created in order to create life. It will then pretty much explain everything we need to know. It explains how all of this makes such sense. It also is what the Bible suggested and what other men suggested. And in truth, when you look at the evidence, it's the only viable, possible theory of how things were created. But that one we don't teach in schools. Now, evolutionists have discovered that not everything evolved, but they're kind of holding it back. Evolutionists are saying that life naturally was created. That DNA, the language for DNA, somehow chemicals, and it evolved and it created because chemicals have propensity to combine. Okay? In that case, we would expect the DNA language and the DNA to change in 3.5 billion years. So one evolutionary change in that language or in the DNA itself, if everything evolves. The fact that they did not evolve is actual evidence that creation occurred just like in the Bible. The letters were created and then life was programmed. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was God. This is the same thing we did. We created a computer by first creating 2 letters, and those 2 letters are the God of that computer. No matter how complicated it is, and it's sending pictures, and I can't understand most of it, or any of it, but I know that it's got 2 letters on and off, and that's what runs it. It's the God of this computer. Just like DNA is the God of the DNA program. Now, if scientists are unable to prove, obviously, that life was created by accident, not prove, they're unable to even guess, to theorize, you wouldn't think that this is what they insist on teaching in school, that evolution is what happened, and evolution as a creation is a potential theory. But in fact, it ain't really. 150 years and counting, and evolutionists have not come up with an alternative theory of creation through accident. Now, they're using computer simulations and all that, and they still can come up with a guess, just a guess. It means probably life was not created by accident. If you can't find it, it probably is not there. Which means that regardless of the evidence, a large group of people decided, based on faith, that they will continue to believe in the religion of evolution, of accidental creation. I don't know why, or even if I do that, I would hate to guess. Now, we don't teach the Bible in school because evolutionists explained to us that it took a lot longer than 6 days, and the argument was always kind of over, no point to ensue this. They won already, the first one we screwed up, so life was created in 6 days, if that's what the Bible says. I don't know how to count it, because time was confounded. But, the truth is that the days of creation had to be measured from the Big Bang, not from Earth. So we don't understand those days of creation because we are assuming they are based on a 24-hour day, which is based on a small planet rotating around a small sun in the middle of nowhere. But everyone has to admit that evolution had to be measured from the Big Bang out. So the fact that evolutionists even complain about the fact that the sun was created on the 3rd day, like it was wrong. I mean, lucky for us, it says it was created on the 3rd day, because then you can understand that the Big Bang, and it took a while for things to get created till they became stars and so on and so forth. Now, like I said, evolution has been confounded, so discussing it, I really don't know that much about it, except that to say, I know that everything else is right and that time was confounded. They really didn't explain it to me that well, to be honest. I'm kind of sketchy about it. But except for the 6 days of creation. Let's leave that aside and let's examine the rest of the evidence and what Torah says and what evolution says, and let's see where are the differences. And you know what? You're going to find out a very strange thing. They suggest the identical sequence of events. One, both suggest life was first created in the ocean. Two, both suggest one mass of land, the supercontinent, rose from the land. Third, both says that after that, life was created on land. Fourth, both say that man was the last to be created, and the last one is, both evolutionists say that early man, Australopithecus and prior to Australopithecus, the one mentioned in chapter 1 of Genesis, was vegetarian, just like the Torah says. Now go figure out how the Torah figured this. Now if somebody is trying to tell me that just chance alone, those 5 items were guessed right in the Torah, well, probabilities are that it's not by chance. Now if we go to the human race, when it comes to the creation of human, regardless of who created the Homo sapiens Cro-Magnon, the same thing, it was accomplished 60,000 years ago by somehow encoding our DNA with language. And this required, again, 4 simultaneous mutation in 4 separate places in the body, brain, head, throat, ear, in order to accommodate our ability of language, which are 2 separate functions. One is to imagine, and the other one is to communicate our imagination, which we lumped as language. Now, since we can't assign forethought to to evolution, then we can't say 4 simultaneous mutations occurred at the same time, which means that using evolutionary theory, it's incompatible with language in human, and actually everyone agrees. Scientists and linguists agree language is incompatible and inexplicable using the evolutionary theory. So, which means language you can't explain using evolution, and life you can't explain using evolution, but somehow it happened, and we're going to assume evolution anyway. Sounds like a religion? I don't know. Now we created computers, intelligent machines, and we did the same thing. Before we created those machines that are pretty complicated, this is coming on one of those machines, we created a 2-letter language. And that 2-letter language is never going to change with that computer. It's the God of that computer, like DNA is the God of the computer creating life. That indicates that this one God doesn't change, that it is not evolution, because it's not evolving. It controls the evolution. Now, the unmistakable conclusion is we need for both physical and mental creation to occur, we need building blocks with which to create. And if we're going to look for intelligent design and language, we need to look for building blocks. We can't look for words as building blocks. We've got to look for letters as building blocks. Evolution is then like a religion. It's got just faith. And same thing when it comes to language. They have looked at words as building blocks, not understanding that letters are building blocks, and consequently they have not seen the sameness in language. In the second video, I will discuss how to prove intelligent design by changing the methodology evolutionists use for evolution. We need to start looking for same meaning of letters within languages, not words. You know, looking at a word is like looking at an atom and finding out that it's got inside of it a lot of more stuff. So the second part is word, semantic and